I was asked by a fellow rod builder how do I shorten the barrels or the threads on a ReelSeat. I've got two different types of ReelSeats here, a TX16 and a GTB16. On the GTB16, your hood nut is made of plastic, so it makes it a little tougher to do, but I just found out that the TX16 lock ring will fit the GTB16. Same threads. So what I do is take the ReelSeat with the trigger pointing up, and I turn it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And then I lock the lock nut as tight as I can get it. Then what I'll do is, if you can see with my big fingers, where there is a gap between the threads and the lock ring, the little space right there, that's where I use my little hacksaw. And what I'll do is keep the hacksaw as straight as I can up against the lock ring, and that's where I make my cut. Trying to keep the blade at a 90-degree angle. Sometimes you'll have to turn it, but to get it to go all the way through, it makes it a little bit easier. So just try to keep your blade at a 90-degree angle. Then what I do, once it's cut, you can kind of look at it. It's a little rough, and there's a couple spots that aren't really too flat. And what I'll do is take an X-Acto blade and just very carefully trim it so it's as flat as I can get it. Like that. Then what I do, remove the lock ring and your hood. And what I like to do is trim out the inside where the excess plastic's kind of rough, stuff like that. I just use a sharp X-Acto blade. Just be careful so you don't cut your fingers, as it'll take one off really quick. So there we have that. And then what you have left is your ribs inside the ReelSeat. And what I'll do there is put the X-Acto blade at an angle and carefully trim them down. Just don't do it to where, you got to be really careful so you don't get your thumb. Imagine you could probably use a fillet glove, the one if you wanted to. But then that's how they end up at an angle. You can hear my dog once in here. Then I'll take a sanding sponge and just lightly sand them in a circular motion like that. And then you still have a little rough edge around the sides of it, and just lightly sand it like that. And that's my finished product. It's pretty flat, and I've trimmed off 2 or 3 threads there. You could trim it off a little farther if you wanted to by just not adding the ring or doing the 3-turn like I do. You could put it all the way down and you could get at least 2 more threads off. But that's how I do the GTB 16. And pretty much the same way with the TX16. Put your lock ring on. You'll have to sacrifice a lock ring, to do this. But I do the same thing with the TX16. Put the trigger straight up and do 3 turns. 1, 2, and 3. And then tighten the lock ring down. Here, the threaded barrel on the TX16 is a little bit longer, so you're going to get about a 1/2 inch cut off. Find the gap, if you can see it, right there, and that's where I start my cuts. and just hold it as flat as you can, and hold your blade as 90-degree angle as you can, and just lightly add pressure as you're cutting. Same thing, you can see there's a little bit of a lip right there, and I'll do the same thing with my X-Acto blade. Just lightly and easily cut the excess that's sticking above the lock ring. Don't get in a big hurry. Get as flat as you can. Then again, remove the lock ring from the hood. And then I'll go in with the ribs and trim them down. Trim the little excess there. This is just how I do it. I'm sure I didn't invent this, and it's not the standard, but it's Bob's way. Take your sanding block and just lightly sand it in a circular motion. Take it around, buff your edges down. And put your hood back on. When you do your build, use your new lock ring. But that's what I end up with, about a thread and a half sticking out above. And I use the rubber winding checks. You can use your aluminum ones. You just have to get it as straight as you can and work with it that way. So hope that helps you guys. Have a good day.